Historically, nations that trust each other with military secrets also trade freely. The logic is simple. Shared defense requires a shared economy. So when the United States hit India with a 50% tariff, it broke the standard model of how allies are expected to behave. Yet at the exact same moment their trade negotiators were locked in a bitter standoff, American and Indian militaries were actually expanding their joint war games. The events of 2026 show two tracks of diplomacy moving in opposite directions, creating a relationship that is simultaneously more hostile and more integrated than ever before. Washington and New Delhi are effectively testing whether a high-stakes military partnership can survive an aggressive trade war. This is a Russian oil tanker docked at a terminal. To keep a nation of 1.4 billion people running, India buys billions of dollars in this Russian energy. Washington objected heavily. This chart illustrates the retaliatory move. The Trump administration took an existing 25% tariff on Indian goods, adding an extra 25% for a 50% total. This rate was higher than the penalty placed on any other partner, including China. The diplomatic fallout was immediate. India's Foreign Minister, Jaishankar, called the move unreasonable, and Prime Minister Modi stated his country was ready to pay a heavy price rather than fold. 5 rounds of negotiations produced 0 deals. By February 2026, the two leaders reached a handshake framework agreement, dropping the tariff from 50% down to 18%. In exchange, India committed to buying $500 billion in American goods over 5 years, covering energy, aircraft, and high-end semiconductors. But the facade of the U.S. Supreme Court marks a shift in the timeline. Just weeks after the handshake, the court ruled that the president lacked the legal authority to impose those sweeping tariffs in the first place. The legal foundation for the initial trade war vanished. U.S. trade officials had to return to New Delhi to lock the verbal 18% rate into a binding treaty before the legal window closed. This sequence shows a shift toward transactional deal-making that bypasses traditional, slow-moving diplomatic consensus. While the trade war caused significant friction, the military relationship remained active and uninterrupted. That defense track is held together by a single external variable, the shared threat of China. You can see that cooperation in this image of a military helicopter and soldiers during a drill. Even during the tariff fight, the two nations renewed a 10-year defense pact and ran joint war games under the banner of Yudh Abhyas. And inside high-tech supply chains, like the semiconductor plant shown here, the U.S. launched Pax Silica, a coalition designed to lock China out of critical materials. India became the first non-treaty ally to join it. When national security against a superpower is at stake, bilateral economic disputes are treated as a separate, secondary issue. However, trust is not absolute. As these Pakistani soldiers in formation suggest, Washington maintains its own conflicting regional ties. The U.S. even hosted Pakistan's military chief at the White House for a high-level lunch. That outreach caused enough friction to stall regional momentum, leading to the shelving of a planned Quad summit in India. This map highlighting the Strait of Hormuz shows why India also pushes back. When the U.S. and Israel launched strikes on Iran, India stayed neutral to protect its energy access through this corridor. Both nations prioritize strategic autonomy, refusing to fully align their worldviews, even when their interests overlap. At the end of 2026, the relationship is defined by its contradictions. Tariffs are lower and trade is climbing, but a final treaty is still unsigned and regional tensions remain. Yet, this group photo from the 2026 G7 summit shows both leaders standing together. The top-level diplomatic relationship survived the economic friction. The events of the past year show that modern powers no longer require broad, sector-wide agreement to maintain a functional partnership. The U.S.-India dynamic suggests a future where nations engage in economic rivalry in one room and collaborate on national security in the next.